This is ScreenView with Peter Van, Amy Morgan, and John Denny. Fan us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at ScreenView Show, and join in on the conversation on Google+.
Welcome to a special edition of ScreenView. I am Peter Van, this is John Denny, and that is not Amy.
I am not Amy.
This is
What gave it away? The hair color?
yeah.
Very observant.
This is Nicole from Fanboy versus Rescue Center. I mean, Underbase, just pretty much essentially.
I get around.
Yeah,
I get around in the podcasting world. So.
Yeah, and you just finished, recording Random Fandom. So.
Yes, about 10 minutes ago. So, got a bathroom break, got a drink, and I'm here. So.
Nice.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, we are here to review The Dark Knight Rises. This week is a special edition. We will be back to the regularly scheduled programming next week. So I guess we could start with Warner Brothers released their number. Actually, the rest of the studios released their numbers today. I guess there's one thing that we can't get around, and you have heard about it on the news, I'm sure, but unfortunately there was a very bad situation that occurred in Colorado this past weekend, and out of respect for the victims and everybody that was involved in this situation or affected by this situation, the studios decided that they would not put out any daily estimates and decided to come out with final estimates today.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely thoughts and prayers go out to all the injured and all those affected. All right, well, that was to be a downer a little bit, but we can bring it back up.
But it's the third highest opening of all time, so.
It is.
Yep.
Right.
So that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Were you gonna say something, John?
Yeah. How are releasing estimates of movie premiere numbers? How is that disrespectful? I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk about the whole situation. Obviously, it's terrible, but I don't understand how that's being disrespectful.
I think it's just that they want to keep the eyes on them instead of trying to take away and just talking about superficial things like cash flow.
Yeah.
And money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they've also canceled a couple of other international premieres too, because of it.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't canceled it; they've rescheduled it for a later time, postponed it. So there you go.
Right.
But The Dark Knight Rises did make $160.8 million in U.S. and Canadian box office this weekend, which is the third highest opening of all time.
Yep.
Behind Avengers, of course, which made $207 million, and Harry Potter: The Deathly Hallows Part 2, which made $169 million.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that you could say is that both of those films opened in regular 3D, IMAX, and IMAX 3D. So this film was not in IMAX 3D, and there were no 3D variants of this film. So it was all 2D picture showings. So it was all 2D theaters, which was, John, we were talking about this last week. It is 4,300 theaters, not screens.
Screens,
So it could
okay.
potentially be 2 theaters per screen. That's 8,000 screens, which is
Well,
Yeah.
I know the theater that I went to at midnight. They had 12 screens just for the midnight show. So.
And there was one 12 o'clock, one was at 12:05, one was at
Yep.
12.
They all started a minute later for each other. So.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
even I went on Friday night, and that was pretty much the same thing. I go to it's a pretty large theater. It's 22 screens, but I think that 3 or 4 of them were set aside for Dark Knight, and they have an IMAX there.
Yeah.
A fake IMAX.
Right. Fake Max.
Fake Max.
I was telling Nicole off the show that I'm very snooty when it comes to IMAX. So I got to see it at Smithsonian, and that's the only way I'll see it in the big ones.
See, I like I said, I'm lucky here. We got a lot of IMAXs here, so people love their movies. So we've got 5, within.
I know that.
20 miles.
There's one in Center City, Philadelphia.
Yeah, the Franklin Institute. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big one too.
And
That's a domed one.
Oh, I love the
Yeah,
dome
yeah.
ones.
It's
And then there's
weird.
one over at King of Prussia, which is real IMAX.
So
I I think that's the craziest name for a city.
what?
King of Prussia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's actually it's like it's like second largest mall in the country.
Yeah.
most profitable.
Yeah.
It's one of the most profitable too, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like makes a ton of cash. That place is always crowded. Um, but yeah, so The Dark Knight Rises beat The Dark Knight, which opened at 158 million. So right now, The Dark Knight Rises is doing really well overseas. It's made 88 million so far, and there's more to go. Like Nicole was saying before, they haven't premiered it yet at various countries, so that
Right.
will definitely, add to the haul as it goes along. So I guess we can get to the point where we want to talk about what we thought of the movie.
So I guess we should warn people there's going to be spoilers, right?
yeah. Spoiler alert. Yeah.
I don't think you can talk about this without
sirens.
spoiling something.
No, we
so-
absolutely need to
Right.
spoil it. For those who don't actually know about The Dark Knight Rises, I guess, is that Batman, played by Christian Bale, has been gone for 8 years, ever since he killed Harvey Dent because he murdered him, that guy. And now somebody named Bane is coming to essentially destroy Gotham, and he must come back. And if you look at the trailers and everything, it's kind of like hints at what may happen or what might not happen. It's so disjointed that you don't really know what's going on. Yeah, so that's how we will. That's essentially what the premise is. They didn't really spoil much, through that. So beyond that, so guest stars first. Nicole, what did you overall think of The Dark Knight Rises?
Okay, I'm probably going to be the more controversial one here.
Uh-oh.
I thought it was a good movie. It was not a great movie. It left a lot of unanswered questions for me. I guess I went in there with too high expectations. I mean, I did get my tickets 6 weeks in advance. I was excited for this movie. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I had good seats. And yeah, and then I just left, I don't know, just slightly disappointed in it. But overall, I still had fun. I still had fun with it. But was it great? No. But I encourage people to go see it.
Okay. All right, John. What did you think?
I really liked it. I think it was Night, but I mean on the same level. But I think there were a lot of high expectations from everyone. So I mean, no matter what you think in your mind the movie could be or should be, it's never going to meet what your expectations are. But I mean, I think that they wove the stories together very, very well, from the first movie into through the second movie, and then culminating in this movie with the the different plots that came together. So I really enjoyed it. I think that it was I think one of the best movies of the year so far that I've seen, which is narrowing it down very, very much because I haven't seen that many movies this year.
Great. That's great.
Of the 4 movies I've seen in theaters, it's probably number 2 to the Avengers because I'm a little more biased towards that.
We'll get to that in a quick later in the show actually. Because I think this movie I don't know, tonally it was the same as the first 2 movies, but I think this movie was trying to accomplish something different. Like the first movie was about, Batman being Batman, or how he became to be Batman. The second one was him facing an adversary like in a psychological way, right? So the Joker was like a completely different take on the Joker, and it completely was a very psychological way about it. It was like instead of playing, he was obviously no match with him physically, but being able to plot things and things like that, it was definitely different. This one I felt was an attempt to be like way more, just to be on a grander scale, like more epic, and it was definitely more epic for sure. And instead of focusing on one specific villain, they they waited until the end to tell you exactly who the main villain was, but they I don't know. I can't. I just feel like it's a different film from the other two, and I'm not sure if he did that on purpose or if he thought, to end this we have to bring all these people and we have to like wrap up all these issues and things and um,
Well, I think one of the best descriptions I read about the Christopher Nolan Batman movies is that they're really good movies that happen to be about Batman. If it was just a story being told, the story is very interesting, and so on and so. And I think that this movie encompasses that feeling more than either of the other two movies. I mean, there's a whole lot of plot, there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of plot, and it all weaves together, I think, very well. But I think that, as far as, I don't think that it got too complicated. Is that what you're saying?
No, no. I definitely didn't mean it got complicated. It was just, it definitely didn't feel like rushed because, at a 2-hour and 45-minute film, nothing can feel rushed.
Right.
I'm not complaining that
Better
it's a long
not.
movie. It definitely didn't feel. It definitely didn't feel like 2 hours and 45 minutes. I felt that it was definitely. It didn't get me bored at any point. But I just feel that it's hard to explain. It just doesn't feel like. It feels like this was more over the top because it was supposed to be the third and the final film, and the only way to get it is to become this massive epic battle instead of like a one-on-one fight between this adversary and that adversary. So it had to become like an all-out war between the good people and the bad, and it was like very definitely pitted against like the night, the dark and the night, or the day and the night. I don't know. Two polar opposites.
Yeah.
It made me think of what the story would have been if Heath Ledger had not died.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Because we had another past character come into this. So would you think, because the Scarecrow was in it, spoiler.
Right.
yeah.
Do you think they would have used the Joker in some way, or?
Well,
'Cause
I think that if Heath Ledger had not died, I think that he would have. The story would be completely different. I don't think that they would have tied it into the first movie at all.
Right, because they kind of discarded the second one, more or less. It was like
They
side
discarded.
adventure.
Obviously, I don't know if anyone else noticed it. I read about it afterwards, but they never even mentioned the Joker at all.
I know,
noticed that.
and they constantly talked about Harvey Dent. That was shoved down your throat for the first half hour of the movie. Harvey Dent's dead, and you're like, okay, yeah,
Right.
I get it.
And in a real world context, I don't understand how that you can talk about Harvey Dent without mentioning
And the Joker, yeah.
Joker.
Yeah.
Because their stories were woven together.
Mhm.
Right.
But I think that if Heath Ledger was still alive, and he would have been the central villain for this movie, and they would have taken the story in a completely different direction. Not that they would have. It still would have been an epic movie, and they would have ended it. But I think that the story plot lines would be totally different. Because, look, Joker is Batman's #1 villain. And, Batman is all about control, and the Joker's all about chaos. So, they're polar opposites. Bane was a very good villain in the comic book for Batman. Because he kind of, in the Nightfall story arc in the comic books, Bane basically wore down Batman and then broke his back, and then essentially killed him from the storyline, and then it went a whole different direction with somebody else becoming Batman. But he's a good villain, but I think that if the options were there, they still would have gone with Joker being the big guy, and it would have been just I can't even imagine what it would have been. But it would have been different.
Right. But how happy were you guys? I don't know, Nicole. I don't know how closely you followed Batman in terms of like the comic books, but
I've recently picked up Batman. Yeah.
okay. So
on the comic book show, I usually read the more obscure comics, but
Yeah.
I have been picking up more mainstream stuff. So.
Yeah. I remember. I think we were talking about. I think Brian was referencing this. He's like, he's like, if Bane picks up Batman and breaks his back, I will be happy.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't know how that's gonna work out. There's gonna be a lot of stuff to like for him to heal his back and this and that, but they did it. Um, like, did that make him a better villain? Like, would you have been able to do without him breaking his back?
No.
I see.
I'm
To me,
sorry.
that's one of those. That's one of those things, though, that took me out of the movie because I've seen people with their back broke. I've actually seen someone paralyzed because of it. Don't heal in 6 weeks' time, and that just was totally unbelievable
What,
to me.
what are you talking about? You've never seen a person who injured their back and then somebody just punched them in the vertebrae and
Oh
fixed
my
them?
gosh, that made me so hurt so bad. I'm just like, but he would not be able to get up for days. That was one of those ones. Okay, I have to put myself in fantasy land because, but the thing that ticked me off about this is Nolan was trying to make this Batman be as realistic as possible, and he just took away of it just in a few moments. The breaking of the back, the whole ending with the bomb. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those parts I was just like, I was excited that he broke his back, but that's how I wanted it to end. I just wanted to see Bane break the Batman's back and,
Fade to black.
and fade to black. Yep. I wanted to see that.
Well, see, in the comics, Bane broke Batman's back, and then someone else's Batman for like
Mhm.
a whole year or something in the comic issues. Obviously, that can't be done.
Right.
And,
who was the Batman in the comic? Who took over?
John Paul Valley. He was Azrael.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it was a whole other story where he went crazy and he was like over controlling and he was very violent. And he actually killed one of Batman's villains. And like everyone thought that it was Batman, but it wasn't Bruce Wayne Batman. It was like, obviously they can't do that. No one else is going to be Batman. So they had to figure out a way to. You can't have a Bane story. Obviously, that's the classic Bane story was his introduction. He broke Batman's back.
Mhm.
From that point on, he's been almost a good guy in the comic books.
A good guy in a bad way.
Yeah, yeah. But like he's a very intelligent character, and he's helped out Batman. Batman's helped out him, and it was never. Ever since then, it was like, not that they're companions and working together, but they can't use any other story to draw from. And everyone's going to say, if he didn't break his back, everyone's going to say, you had Bane in there, and Batman, he didn't break Batman's back.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, you have to use that story, but you can't use the rest of it where someone else is Batman. So it's kind of like, it was like 5 months. I think it wasn't 6 weeks, was it?
It was. I think it was. It was 3 months, I believe, is what they said.
Yeah.
But he was laying down for probably about a month.
Right.
So.
I know. But I mean, it's obviously. I don't think they showed the length of time where he was in that prison. I don't think they portrayed that as a very long time.
Right. No, they didn't.
Because as a viewer, you're like, oh, okay. You look at the screen, it says day 84, and you're like, wait a second, what?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I mean, it's something that has to be done well. I think that you had to go with that story, but there's really no other way to do that. I mean, unless you kill him off at a back breaking, then
Right, which you probably shouldn't do.
That's what I wanted, though.
Right. Yeah. So Nicole, you said this movie did not answer some of the questions that you had.
Okay. Yeah. So the biggest complaint I have is in one part of the movie you see him have like this bionic leg, this bionic knee brace or whatever. You see it for 2 seconds and then never mentioned again. I'm like, okay. And then what happened to the pearls? And there's just like these little things that are just like, okay.
Wait.
But
he said she could keep the pearls, right?
I think so, but I don't. I haven't. I didn't see him at the end when they're on their little vacation. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did,
He took them back, and then I lost
mhm.
track of what happened
Oh,
to them.
right.
Yeah. So, but like the knee brace thing, that was real. That's the one thing that stands out to me. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be cool. We're gonna see him almost be Darth Vader-ish, like I guess, And I was hoping that's what they were gonna do to his back, somehow work the whole knee brace over to his back, but they never even touched on it again. So.
Yeah, that was something they could have just done where he could have been faking his leg injury.
Yeah, that's what I
Mm.
was thinking that they
Oh,
he was
really?
doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, they could have just done away with that whole scene and just been like,
That
you
would
know.
probably been best for me because I'm like, okay.
yeah,
I mean, it did get him in the hospital to visit Commissioner Gordon, but
Yeah.
yeah,
they really didn't need to do something. I mean, you can go to the hospital.
yeah,
It's not
Yeah.
like it's a prison.
yeah, yeah. That is true. All right, so
I didn't understand why he didn't do anything as Batman for 8 years.
Yeah. They never explained that either. Yeah.
it's because he
I
was so
mean-
devastated by he was pretending to be the guy who murdered Harvey Dent, and he was devastated by the death of Rachel Dawes.
8 years though, man. I don't know.
I mean, they kind of hit on that pretty hard for the first hour. They were
Yeah.
like, "You're just so you never lived, you never went beyond what happened that night. You just kept staying in that one specific spot." And so
Yeah, I get that, but as far as he at the end of Dark Knight, the whole thing was, "Oh, now you're the villain. Everybody hates you because you killed Harvey Dent."
Mhm.
And if you hate someone and then they go away for 8 years, do you still hate someone? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that the hatred was still there for Batman.
well, every year they had the Harvey Dent Day, and then every year they brought back the hatred that they had for Batman.
Harvey Dent Day.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Harvey Dent Day, and then the Dent Act, and then the Dent prison, and then the Dent cars and stuff like that.
Well, and then another thing, I don't know if you listen to Fanboy Versus that I have a problem with was, okay, at the very end, Commissioner Gordon's trying to get Batman to tell him who he really is before he goes off into the sunset. And yeah, after all these years, Commissioner Gordon is trying to figure out who Batman is, right? I mean, he knows he's worked with Batman. He hasn't figured out who Batman is. But yet, a kid who's met Bruce Wayne for 5 minutes figures out that Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same person. I find that to be the biggest stretch of the truth in this movie. It's just like, okay, because he's like, I've seen that pain before, and I'm like, how many kids have lost their parents? You could say that about any kid that's lost their parents. I've seen that pain before. No. Nice try, but no.
I mean, I think it's more of a stretch that Commissioner Gordon hadn't figured it out.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, Batman has an endless supply of. He rolls around in a tank. Number one.
Right.
Later on, you see him on a motorcycle, and an indestructible motorcycle. He's got a flying thing. He's got money, right?
Right.
So who's got money in Gotham? Bruce Wayne. Like, it makes such sense to me that
Right.
it's more shocking to me that Commissioner Gordon had never figured it out.
Well, I think I
Mhm.
mean they kind of explained that away too, because he was like, oh, something about Gordon. He was like, no, Gordon couldn't care less who the Batman is. So like it was more like it was it benefited him so well. They had such a good relationship that there was no reason for him to actually care about who he
You
was.
gotta think, in how many years, though, you're not going to be a little curious?
I
Come
think he was
on.
overwhelmed with guilt for the past 8 years, and he had nothing else better to do than to guilt himself and to drive his family.
I don't understand why
I think,
when Batman finally tells people who he is throughout the other two, or at least two of the movies, he doesn't just say, "Hey, it's me,
Bruce Wayne.
Bruce
yeah.
Wayne." he always says something that like makes someone have to think about it, and then like put the pieces together and be like, oh, it's Bruce.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like in the
yeah,
first
absolutely.
movie, he's like, what did he say to Rachel? He says something to Rachel Dawes that she had said to him,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and then like it's just stupid.
Well, there was
Just
a
like,
kid there.
Hey, it's Bruce Wayne. Well, so
See,
what?
what I don't understand is why does it matter? See, at that final thing where he revealed who he was to Commissioner Gordon, all I kept thinking was he was a cop. How many times has he actually done that to someone? Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, the
And
thing is, Batman saved Commissioner Gordon's boy. You don't think he'd be slightly curious? Who's this real guy that saved my son?
He's Batman.
Yeah, you gotta think that Commissioner Gordon is smart enough to say, hey, he wears a mask. Obviously, he doesn't want people to know who he is.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
I
think
should let Sleeping Dog. He's helping me out. I should let Sleeping Dogs lie.
Yeah. Although the funny thing was he was all code. He was being all like speaking in code and telling Commissioner Gordon when Selena Kyle already knew who he was. He was like, why don't you just tell? I mean, you're gonna fly and aka blow yourself up with an atom bomb, which
Right.
was
Yeah.
the most rough-handled atom bomb on the face of the planet.
I know.
I was thinking that too. I'm like, really?
The plutonium was very unstable. Just crash it off of a bridge, and then smack it around Gotham City before you fly it out. Because
You know who I feel sorry for? The thugs that have to drive around the truck knowing that they have it in there.
I know, right?
Right.
They're just like, oh my god.
I don't get paid enough for this shit.
Yeah. They're not getting paid at all. They were just like essentially what they
true.
were doing. They were just like, yay, we're anarchists. This is awesome. I'm gonna drive around a bomb for the name of anarchy.
They were
Great.
communists. Did everyone else get that feeling?
What?
That he just essentially introduced communism into Gotham?
Pretty much.
Like actual
Your money-
actual communism though, not like the
Right.
not like the communism that exists on paper. It's like the
Right.
North Korean it's just like
Right.
yeah.
Your money is everyone's money. Everyone is equal. No one's in jail. Except if I don't like them, then I'm going to kill them.
And then there are two ways to go: exile or death by exile.
Which doesn't make any
that's
sense
another
because
thing.
I didn't understand that because if they asked for death, right, and they said, but I'm not going to walk out in the ice, so give me death. Like, if you put them on the ice, there's a chance that they could live. So it's not giving them death.
But let's
But
not talk about that plot. Let's not talk about that fault in logic there.
Well, let's talk about does Batman have freezing powers? Because the first time you saw someone go on exile, there's 3 guys, they all fell through the ice, right? So when the next time you see him on the ice, you got 5 people and Batman who actually ran out there, put a flared gun down, There's more people on the ice, but nothing happens.
Yeah, not to mention he wears a 50-pound rubber suit that goes on top of his 250-pound frame.
So is Mr. Freeze in here somewhere? Did he get Mr. Freeze just to come in and say, "Hey, just take care of this for a little bit"?
Yeah, he must have found his gun or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
That's one of those little holes that get to me. I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that makes more sense to me because when it's the middle of winter, the edges of the river freeze up
Mm-hmm.
first. Obviously, the moving water is not going to be frozen at all, if it is. So on the edges, it can be really thick, and when they get out to certain points, it can be just too thin to be on. And they were pretty close to the edge still.
Yeah, but Batman was walking out there like he is the man.
down
He's
from, like-
strutting. He's got that big old suit on. I'm pretty sure those boots have got some good old pounding.
Yeah.
So it's just-
Absolutely.
yeah, I could have done without that scene.
I guess the biggest question that is did you guys see it coming? Did you guys see that knife literally, I guess, like plunging into Batman's side? Did you see that coming? Like, did you see that Miranda Tate is Talia al Ghul?
I feel so stupid because as I'm watching the movie, I did.
I
Me did.
Too. Me too. I felt so dumb afterwards. I was like,
I'm watching the movie.
damn
Like
it,
I've
he
read,
had
I've read so many Batman comic books that I know. Obviously, Ra's al Ghul is a daughter.
right.
It's Talia al Ghul, but like, I'm watching the movie and I'm buying into the whole thing. It's like, oh, ain't the son. It's like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
And I'm like, it didn't even occur to me until like it happened. I was like, oh my god,
that's right. He didn't have a son. He had a daughter. Ah.
The
Yeah.
thing that got to me is I figured it out because the good guy usually gets screwed by the woman, and that's how I figured it out. So.
Right. Well, there were
Yeah.
yeah. But there were two women, and he already got screwed by one of them. So
Yeah,
I kind of like figured,
I didn't. I see. That's the thing. I didn't think this Catwoman was that threatening to him. At certain points, I was like, okay, maybe when she got the fingerprints, I'm like, this is going to be it. But I had a feeling, she had other plans. She wanted to get out of it, so I'd never found her Catwoman actually threatening.
Right.
Yeah, I think that they played that really well. She's not necessarily a villain in the comic book, so I think that they did that very well. Where she wasn't a villain in the movie, which according to the reviews, everyone's like, "Oh, Catwoman plays a fantastic villain." It's like, no, she's not a villain. She doesn't do anything directly against Batman at all.
Right.
She does stuff to herself, but she does them to herself so she can survive. So, in a way, I don't know.
so I mean, did you think she did a good Catwoman? I mean, did you guys think that she was?
Yeah, no problem with her. I think she did really well.
At first, I didn't like her. I was just like, there was something about her. I'm like, she's playing a little too of the cheese factor, but I loved her by the end of the movie. Yeah, I really thought Anne Hathaway did a good job.
And this is to all the crazy people who were like screaming that the Batman, the Catwoman suit or whatever, those ears look terrible and blah blah blah. It turns out that they weren't ears at all. They were like goggles that could flip out.
And you what?
That
was probably one of the biggest surprises of the movie for me because I'm one of those people. I'm like, why would you wear cat ears anyways? But when you actually saw them in motion, you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. I actually liked it after that. Once you saw it. So.
Still have no idea what they do, but it was.
I was just gonna say night vision.
They wear.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, she does wear like those goggles in the new version, right? She wears like the goggles on top of her head and stuff. Okay. Well, I definitely kind of afterwards I definitely kicked myself because I was like, Ra's al Ghul didn't have a son; she had a daughter, and that was kind of surprising that he kind of made a cameo, except for it was him like freaking out just by himself because the guy just punched him in the back of the vertebrae and set his back for him.
And anything with Liam Neeson gets an extra grade up for me. So.
Right.
Love that man.
And I guess the final thing is, I mean, what do you guys think that I personally don't think. I mean, John, you were saying this before that you would put this like a little behind Avengers, and Brian was saying that as well. And I personally. You can let me know what you guys think about this. I don't think it was. You can compare the two.
No, I mean, they're different movies.
Yeah, they're
obviously the Avengers is meant to be more of a fun movie.
Right, and they're trying to accomplish completely different things.
Right. Well, yeah, of course. I'm just talking as strictly entertainment value. Going to the movies to enjoy a movie. Did we lose Nicole again?
Yeah, we lost her again, but it's fine.
I would say that Avengers was a little bit more for me because I had more fun watching the movie. When I was watching Dark Knight Returns, it was more about following the story and catching everything and not missing anything and just making sure that everything makes sense to end the story.
Right. You didn't have to like sit back. You didn't have to like sit there and be like, that's right, Harvey Dent died and yada yada and this and that. Right.
There was no risk of a guy sitting next to me jumping up and screaming and clapping. Like it is Avengers.
There wasn't?
Remember that happened in the Avengers?
The guy yelling at other people being fanboys and then screaming at the top of his lungs.
Oh my God, when the Hulk came on screen, oh my God.
Yeah, that was... Anyway.
I've never seen that. I was like, what is happening? Like I jumped up.
Comic-Con? Go away! Stop screaming in the middle of the theater. And he was the only guy that was doing it. That was the worst part.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, John and I saw the movie together, and
oh, that's cool.
yeah, and there was some guy on the same row. He was just like screaming for the Hulk every time he came on, and he was so happy about
But
it.
anyway, yeah. I mean, just to get back to the four plot points of the Dark Knight. I hated the fact that Joseph Gordon-Levitt's real name was Robin.
Yeah,
That was like the most forced down your throat. Oh my
stupid.
gosh.
Like,
Yeah.
number one, that's a girl's name.
That's right. I found that kind of weird. That was definitely weird, and it was definitely it made sense, sort of, that Bruce Wayne would give him the coordinates to get to the southeast corner of the Wayne Manor, but at the same time, it's like Robin never becomes Batman, and his name isn't really Batman, so that was definitely
It's gonna
very
become
like.
Nightwing.
Yeah, that was
I
definitely.
would like it
a
if he became
shock.
Nightwing.
That's what I assumed that he would just be. He would be Batman a little bit different. He would be something like Nightwing.
So he like okay.
It would have been totally fine. Everything about the ending would have been fine if they had never said, "You should use your real name. I like the name Robin." It's like, no, stop that.
I don't think it needed to. I don't think that was necessary. I think.
If I was Christopher Nolan and I read that in the script, his brother wrote the movie, I would slap my brother in the face.
Well, I think, in my
No.
opinion, I think that was put in there because a lot of people were anticipating that he was going to be Robin, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, that he was going to be Robin.
Right.
So, and it never really gave any clue to the traditional, Dick Grayson story. So I think they just threw it in there so people would have a resolution. But talk about stuff down your throat.
Yeah.
That was
but I
just...
mean, I more equated him finding out, the way he interacted with Batman and things like that. I more equated him with the Tim Drake Robin. Anyway, so it was like, why would his real name be, obviously his last name was Blake. So Timothy Drake. I don't know. It just, I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way that it was like, oh, Robin. Oh, I get it. It's stupid.
Yeah. I feel like I guess a lot of people in the general public don't know, Dick Grayson is Robin, so I guess they had.
You know what
to
they
shove that
should have
down your
done?
throat a little bit. Nothing.
They should have had an Easter egg at the very end of him in a Robin suit.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
No, nothing like that. They should have had the Easter egg, and it just shows you,
Yeah.
like, here's what's going to happen in the next movie if it happens.
Yeah, I kind of figured he would be Robin anyway. Once they said that, he was an orphan, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Another thing that I just another nitpick that I had was that when they revealed that Talia al Ghul was the main villain and she had planned everything, I think that it took so much away from the Bane character.
It
And kind of like it reverted him back to the Batman and Robin type Bane, where he's just a muscle.
Yeah.
And that bothered me so much because if they had not had the Talia al Ghul character, obviously it makes a lot of sense to tie it in together with the actual stories in the comic books. But if they had left it alone and just said, hey, Bane is Ra's al Ghul's son, I think it would have been fine. It would have shown his genius and Bane's genius and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But now they made him basically a bodyguard for her.
Right.
Yeah.
Eventually, you were like, "Oh man, how did he figure out that it was Bruce Wayne was Batman and yada yada?" And then it turns out, oh, she just told him.
Right. And that's what bothered me. I mean, because the characterization of him in Batman and Robin was, although it's popular because a lot of people have seen that movie and a lot of people hated that movie, but the characterization is so wrong. But that's again what it boils down to. It was just a muscle.
Right.
See, Bane's the one thing that I probably had the hardest time with is because of his mask. His costume just took away from everything that I wanted from the character. The mask was way too big. I had a hard time hearing what he was saying a lot of the times. And like I said, just covered too much of his face. I couldn't get any real expression. The hardest point of the movie was when he was reading the letter from Gordon.
Oh yeah.
I was just like, okay, I'm kind of understanding what you're saying, but there was just way too many. He was okay when it was just a few words here and there, but that whole speech is like, what are you saying? I kind of got it, but I kind of didn't.
And all I kept thinking about was in the opening sequence was Sean Connery's in this movie.
What's funny is I didn't have any problem understanding him. I picked it up on it pretty quickly. but except when he was in the football stadium,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no way the people in the stadium would have understood what he was saying. Because
Like we're not
right. Like if you were in the seat, if you were in the football stadium, you'd be standing next to the person next to you, being like, "What did he say? What did
The
he
thing
say?"
is, all you had to understand if you were there is he has a big old ass gun. I
Yeah.
better be scared. So,
Is that a bomb? Is that a bomb? Did he say bomb?
oh, what just happened? You know, this must be
Yeah.
the guy that just did this because.
I caught myself a lot like having to like close my eyes just so I can concentrate on his voice. There were certain parts like in the beginning of the film, it was so clear. It was so clear in the airplane. It was very easy to understand, even though he sounded like Sean Connery. It was very easy to understand. But then as it went through the film, I felt like it became like a degradation of like his voice. It got worse and worse, and then it like got to the point where it was like the breaking point where he started reading the Harvey Dent letter, and it was just like it's a whole like so it was this whole speech, this whole soliloquy or whatever, and it was just I only and then after that I could only catch half of everything. Like I would miss the complete beginning of what he said, and then I would catch the other second half of what he said, and then I would have to like slowly work my way to piece it back together.
Let's see. The thing is, you're supposed to be totally afraid of this guy, and I was more confused than afraid.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry. What did you say? It would be more like, "Oh, you're threatening." I'm sorry. It sounded like a threat. But what did you say exactly?
You're supposed to be like, but you're more like, huh?
Yeah.
I think my wife said that if she could read his lips a little bit, then
Exactly.
it would have made more clear. Obviously, if you read his lips, then there would be no problem understanding his voice. But
Right.
I don't know. Like I said, I didn't really have a problem with it, or I didn't have an issue picking up what he was saying.
And how many people did you have to explain the whole mask and why he has it? I've had to explain that a few times to
Nobody
people.
asked.
Really?
Yeah.
Nobody asked. I think they explained it pretty well. That he got his face pretty tore up, and it's constant.
Yeah.
It's not Venom, which is what it is in the comic book.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
But in the
completely
movie,
different
it was morphine.
reasoning for it.
Morphine.
I would have liked to see the Venom. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of for some reason thought there would just be like those were like Venom tubes or something like that, but
Yeah.
his face was falling
I
off.
think I would have liked the design more if it was a little smaller, but it just took up way too much of his face.
Yeah.
I barely see his eyes, and I just didn't like
Yeah.
it.
Although you could he did pretty good in terms of the amount of facial expression that he could do. Like, you could see it in his eyes what was going on. So
Mhm.
I think
I couldn't tell at all that it was Tom Hardy.
Oh,
No,
no.
you
It didn't look anything like him.
he was jacked.
Well, I'm just like, if you put Tom Hardy's face next to Bane's face from the movie, like it could be anybody.
It could,
No hair, you keep two eyeballs, and that's it. It could be anybody.
Yeah, he shaved. I mean, he definitely like shaved his head, and they actually had a picture
Yeah.
of him with his mask off, like after he shot the film.
The suntan lines?
Yeah, was that on your page? Was that on your page?
It was.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
had, like this, like he essentially had like a white mask, and it was like of
He looks
Bane.
like Avatar.
Yeah,
He looks like
yeah.
an almost
Yeah, he
Avatar.
looks like Aang, in the Avatar. Yeah. So, I mean, I think overall, this is definitely like, I mean, while I mean it was so hyped that you definitely couldn't, live up to all of the expectations. I think it was a good closure of the trilogy. It did a good job of sort of leaving it open, and maybe I don't know if he would be up for that, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt like becoming the new Batman or Nightwing or something like that.
To me, he was my favorite part of the whole movie, was Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Anytime he was on the scene, I liked the scenes that he was in. I thought he did a
He did
great
really
job.
well, yeah.
I mean, Joseph Gordon-Levitt in its own, he's a great actor. So
Oh, yeah, for
he's
sure.
he's definitely got that presence for it. So.
Hmm.
I don't think that they're going to continue this franchise. So
Justice League.
I don't expect.
Next version will be Justice League, right?
Right, and they're already talking about a new Batman and this guy. I'm serious. Did you see a Superman trailer?
Yeah.
I saw they did not have any trailers when I went
Really?
in the IMAX.
like
I
I
went
s-
to go see it. Yeah.
Like I tell people, the Superman trailer, I thought I was watching a laundry detergent commercial. It's just like, oh, and then that symbol finally came up. I'm like, oh, this is
You expected
Superman.
the bear to come out with like a
Yeah.
laundry biscuit?
Well, because
Yeah, I mean,
he's out. You just see something out in the yard running around, and you're like, oh, this. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it afterwards.
I mean, it's a teaser, but it's like I
Yeah,
don't
it's just.
know. That'll be the universe. They're gonna put everything together and have it.
The thing is, if
Justice
they're
League.
wanting to do a Justice League movie, it rides on the shoulder of this Superman movie, I think. If this
Oh, yeah,
Superman
that-
movie doesn't do well, they're not going to do Justice League.
Yeah. I mean, I think they definitely did a good job of, Christopher Nolan did such a great job in terms of bringing Batman
Oh, for sure.
back from the, Joe Schumacher days, that
Mhm.
they brought him on as a producer, so he has a hand in it.
Right.
And it definitely, hopefully won't, this Superman won't be a douchebag like the Superman Returns version.
You know what? I made it through 15 minutes of Superman Returns. I don't even know what happened in the movie. I turned it off. To tell you the truth.
Wow. I'm
He
surprised you
saved the
didn't
day
catch it.
by
It's on
saved
like,
the day by lifting a giant rock.
yeah, it's on like
Yeah.
FX like every 15 minutes, so
You know
I'm
what?
surprised that you don't get
Maybe
to
one
watch it.
day I'll watch it, but
Yeah, I mean, if it was just like Superman is just, every time I think of something, it's just like, man, DC, if only you could be more like Marvel, you'd be in such
Yeah.
better shape.
DC puts out great animated movies.
Right.
Yeah, they
The
do.
live
Yeah, they
action.
do.
Yeah, and Marvel's just the opposite, I think. Marvel puts out great live action. They need to work a little bit more on the animation.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So
And I just find Superman as a character to be very uninteresting. He can do everything. Who cares?
That's the thing. It's just like the Superman's coming up. Do we really need another Superman origin story? Who on this planet that's more than 10 years old does not know the origin of Superman?
right, who
I
on
think-
this planet
At
hasn't
least it's
suffered through 10 seasons of freaking Smallville?
I only watched the first 3. So once Lex Luthor left, I did too. So
Yeah. And then season 10.
I think that it's so well known that they could just glance over it and do like maybe 10 minutes where it's like, that's it. Everyone knows it.
Yeah, it doesn't appear that it's going to. I mean, hopefully it won't be very much of like this is what happened on Krypton, and this is
Mhm.
and all those things. So hopefully it won't be like that. But I guess going back to the topic. What?
Oh yeah, we're talking Batman,
yeah,
not
we're talking
Superman.
about Batman and The Dark Knight Rises here. But I guess this is I mean, are there any final thoughts? Like anything else you guys have anything that's bothering you, Nicole? Anything that's
No,
bothering you?
honestly, I thought overall it was a good movie. There's just like these little bits, and I guess it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. I'm one of those fans, It wasn't my movie that I had in mind, but overall it was good. It just broke up into little pieces, certain points, but overall it's a good movie. People need to go see it because it is a great end to the trilogy. Nolan did an awesome job,
John.
I think that he should have died.
He should have
me,
blown up with that
that
atom
sound-
bomb, the poorly handled atom bomb. Yeah.
Right. I mean, look, not obviously he couldn't. He shouldn't have done that with Bane breaking his back because no one wants to die seeing the Dawn win.
I think so many people would have been pissed if it faded to black
Oh,
right
yeah.
there. They'd be like,
I would have loved it.
you
I mean, like,
would have been the
this
only
is
one
what I
standing up
wanted.
to applause, and everyone would be like, what is wrong with
But
See, I like the Sopranos ending. Sorry.
the only people who benefit from seeing Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne alive at the end of the movie are the people in the audience. Everyone in Gotham thinks that Batman is dead, thinks that
Right.
Bruce Wayne is dead.
right?
Even Michael Caine thought that he had actually died, and
Right.
he was totally grief-stricken.
Yeah.
And like, it just doesn't make any sense in the context of the movie. I mean, I get that the whole thing, like he's getting past it and moving on with his life, but it doesn't benefit anyone but the people watching the movie. It's like, oh, thank God he lives.
I wonder.
You know?
Yeah. I wonder if it was tested poorly. I wonder if it was like an Inception type ending. It's like, is he dead? Is he alive? And then it was like, and then people were like, what happens to Bruce Wayne? Does he live or does he die? You know, because they kind of like. I mean, although I think that autopilot thing, once they did that, it could have been over. That could have been it. Because they explained that part, right? He fixed the autopilot, so he jumped out.
Wait, this is what could happen now. This is just my little thing. Bruce Wayne's fingerprints are still out there. Maybe it's someone posing as him. It could that did that work. Bruce Wayne, the real Bruce Wayne, could be dead, but there might be a poser out there.
But they showed him, didn't they?
Right. Well,
Just
she's saying if he didn't go to
that worked
Florence.
That worked on the ship.
Oh.
Right. If he didn't go to Florence, you know.
Yeah.
Or it could have ended like he thought it was Bruce Wayne, and then it turns out that it wasn't. It's like, oh, it's that douchebag in that freaking sweater wrapped around his shoulder. I guess only the Europeans think of that. But,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's a.
I mean, just to put a closing on the end of the movie, obviously the whole thing that, like, in the beginning of the movie, it's like, anyone's going to be Batman, he's just a symbol, and obviously that's going to continue on because someone else is going to take up, at least to be the hero of Gotham, but...
Robin John Blake.
He didn't actually die. So, still, he could still come back and be Batman. That's what bothers me.
He could be.
Then they could have, they could have Selina and Bruce have,
Batman baby.
Damian.
Yeah,
Damian. Please do not do Damian. Damian is the one Robin that I want to bitch slap so bad.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I do not care for Damian.
Yeah, I maybe it was just because it's a trilogy and things like that they had to wrap it up that way. If they left it so unhinged as a trilogy, people would be kind of a little cheated, maybe. Maybe it was a studio mandated. It's like, you have to tell them what happens to Batman. I mean, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I don't know. I want bitch at the end of Inception.
Well, I told you, Inception 2 is going to happen, and they're going to show you for like 2 minutes whether or not the top falls off or not, and then the movie ends.
Everyone's like, oh, they don't...
I'm
going to tell you what happens at the end of Inception. Well, I got news for you. Christopher Nolan made the movie that way. That's the way he wanted it to end.
Yeah.
What happens at the end of Inception?
He didn't run out of film.
He hires the woman to play Miranda for Batman. There you go. That's what happened at the end of Inception. She gets an acting career and goes on to play. Yeah.
She no longer she can break into the English cinema and.
Yep. There you go.
Hop back and forth between French and English cinema. So.
There you go.
So that's the only thing that left me like, he lived. So what?
Yeah. Nah. Okay, well, thank you very much. I think that's a great place to wrap up our review of The Dark Knight Rises. Thanks to our guest host, Nicole.
Thank you for having me. I love coming on these shows. It's so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We should do a random fandom ScreenView crossover sometime.
There you go.
There we go. Random View or a Random View. I don't know. I just made that up. It's terrible. I know.
Screen Random. There you go.
There you go. Screen Random. And it could just be like a pick of the hat. We'll make John review James Bond Jr.
I love James Bond Jr. I had all the action figures.
I know.
And the comic books.
Those were awesome.
James Bond Jr. Oh my gosh, I haven't heard that for a while.
I had all 6 of the novels.
Oh wow.
Novels? There were 6. There were James Bond Jr. novels.
Yeah, I mean, like 150 pages of nonsense.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. All right, well, that will do it for our special episode of ScreenView for me, Peter Van, Jonathan Denny, and Nicole Hale. Let us know what you thought of The Dark Knight Rises on our brand new Facebook page, facebook.com/ScreenView. Or you can just, hit us up on Twitter at ScreenView Show or email us at screenview@tfradio.net. We will see you guys next time.
Alrighty.
Aloha.
You've been listening to ScreenView. ScreenView is a radio-free Cybertron production. Visit us at tfradio.net for show notes and to subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at tfradio for news and updates. Watch our live stream at tfradio.net/live. Join our Facebook fan page at facebook.com/tfradio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, TF Radio Network. Have a question or comment? Leave it on our Facebook fan page or mail it to contact@tfradio.net. Copyright 2011, Radio Free Cybertron.